Come on, everyone, make some noise!
So imagine a young toddler, 3 or 4 years old maybe, barely making his walk through a small chamber, trying to sit beneath the table of his father, hour, and saying one thing to his father while he's sitting besides the table is just one word, tak. So that's throw. And what I intended to say to my father used to be that just throw that phone down. And the intent used to be just emulate him in trying to give the advice that he used to as a lawyer to people. So hello everyone, I am Advocate Dr. Chinmay Bhosale, a gold medalist in law, also as mentioned, one of the youngest doctorates in law. So this was the earliest memory of law for me, and that's where I have started my liking and journey with this field of law. I guess all of you by now have pretty much have had glamorous opinions about law. Suits, has everyone seen Suits? I guess all the boys also do envy or either want to be like Harvey Specter, I guess. So that's helped our profession. But back when I started my intent to be in law, I think that was pretty much a second option for most of the people. The first reaction when people used to opt for law, if they had any sort of brain, the response used to be, if you're intelligent, might as well go for engineering, as you guys all are, I'm presuming, or try and become a doctor. However, law back then was not glamorous, and in spite of that entire social phenomenon, in spite of the taboo that was there for so-called bright people to enter into law, that was something which was always stuck in my mind. Having seen the environment at my home, I always knew that I wanted to become a lawyer. So what was I seeing? I was born in a tiny 1 BHK. I knew there were struggles. I knew my father was a lawyer. I could see what he used to do. I could see that he was never around. But why? Because he was trying to work really hard, and I could see the journey that he was going through, and that really fascinated me. And with that thought in mind, I knew that there is nothing that I could take for granted, and there is a lot of struggle that I might have to face if I wanted to become a lawyer. With that thought, I did choose to become a lawyer, of course, with the knowledge that nothing is going to come easy. You might think that I would have gotten the obvious encouragement, being a second generation, to be in this field. However, since I think my parents knew the trials and tribulations of this field, I was always told not to become one. But in spite of all the opposition that might have come my way from the family itself, I chose to do law. And with that thought, I entered into the law school. I have studied here in ILS Law College. I was the gold medalist of the Pune University. But however, life doesn't come as easy, right? Of course, you guys must have seen Suits. Being a lawyer maybe is just throwing punches and winning cases and probably dealing with everything which might seem and sound fancy. But eventually, that is not what life in law is all about. And rather than speaking about the experiences in the courtroom, I would rather share with you all my experiences beyond the courtroom. So having this entire mindset, I did get into my law school. My earliest memories, I think, of setbacks, as life usually gives us, is any one of you aware of Rhodes Scholarship? Is anyone aware of being a Rhodes Scholar? So it's a scholarship given in UK, which is considered to be pretty prestigious. The likes of, say, Bill Clintons of the world are Rhodes Scholars. And I had somewhere in my mind that I would want to go to Oxford University as a Rhodes Scholar. And that's where my entire intent of my law school was. Little did I know that that was going to be one of the biggest setbacks for that young age for me. I was working really hard. There was a tiny ray of hope which came my way, and I was shortlisted for the Rhodes Scholarship in the India community. However, eventually I didn't make it. And I think that was the first setback that as a law student that I faced. And maybe that's where somewhere I started understanding life, that life is going to come with setbacks, with small punches, a scar here and there, and it's all going to be about how you deal with it, right? Is where I was poised at. And little did I know that I was going to face extremely, extremely hard punches now from life. At 25, within 11 days of me getting engaged to my wife, we had to face one of our biggest struggles of life. Both her parents passed away in an accident. That we were trying to cope up, and within the age of 26, within barely a few months or probably a year, my father, who was a giant at the bar, uh, fell ill, was on ventilator for 58 days. I was 26, and he gave up practice. So right from being that proverbial golden-eyed, golden spoon boy with a senior advocate in his family, with all the degrees, at 26, I was left as the only person who was working in the family. In-laws were no more around. Father had given up practice. And all I could do was take those blows, right? So this is what life eventually teaches you, that it's not going to be about walking around and throwing punches. It's also going to be about taking punches from life and still learning what's to be done with it. With that situation around me, I entered my practice. I started my practice at Bombay, at the illustrious chambers of Mr. Satish Manishinde. How many case? He's a very well-known person over here. So for a tiny little boy whom I mentioned at the start, who always dreamt to be in this world, it was like walking around my superheroes in some movie when I was working with these people, walking toe-to-toe with them and trying to learn. But while I was trying to do that, I could also feel that in life, if you carry those baggages, your egos, that I am so and so, I have come with a degree, with a gold medal and blah, blah, it's not going to help you, because everyone is trying to scrape through that tiny little foot in the door that you would want to take. And very little did I know and understood that that tiny little foot in the door could be taken if you just keep your ego aside and try to learn what is happening. So there are very little subtle nuances of life that you need to understand, which are eventually going to help you to go ahead and learn the real upskillings and real things about life and profession, right? When you go to a doctor, you go to a lawyer, you are handling over the entire life of yours to them, because if there is one wrong move, it's going to cost you everything. It might be just one setback for that professional, but for you, it's going to cost you everything. And the mindset that you need to create in the society at large is everything that matters. And with this particular mindset of mine, I entered into this profession, and eventually, one by one, I tried to tackle all the blows that were being thrown at me at the age of 26, 27, and go ahead into life in general. So what is it that I really learned from these lessons beyond the courtroom? What is it that I really did? One, of course, in life, there is no scope for taking anything for granted. Many a times we end up taking the smallest of the things absolutely granted, be it our parents, be it our friends, be it our career, or the very house that we live in, right? However, in life, one thing that I've figured, that if you don't take things for granted, that's the only way you're going to be absolutely prepared for what you're going to do in life. Had I not what was needed. And the second thing then which taught me, which is probably lacking, I would presume I'm not too old, but which is lacking in the generations which are younger than me, is patience. Many a times in life, we lack patience. We try to squeeze everything too soon, too quick. And if that doesn't happen, we eventually give up. But as a lawyer, as a junior, and even now in my profession where I am, having handled all the multinationals, having represented in endless hundreds of cases across the state, one thing that has really stuck with me is that we really need to be patient. And why do I say that? You read hundreds of pages, you go through thousands of case laws, you prepare yourself to be in front of the court, representing your clients whose life or hundreds or thousands of crores are at stake, and you understand that that particular day, the argument is not going to happen, the judge is not present, the other party is not there, or probably there is some another reason that the work is not just going ahead, but what does that leave you with? Do you get flustered? Or do you be patient and you keep going and doing what you're supposed to do day in, day out without getting bored? So this is what life has thrown to me the second time. And the second lesson beyond the courtroom has always been learning that nuance of being courtrooms. Apart from this, something that I would really like to share with you all is the absolute nuance of law and life as we see. We always say, for us lawyers, that life is all about black and white. That's how we also try to see life from your end, right? From people who are not in this field, you'll see life as right and wrong. But the lessons through the courtrooms always have taught one thing, and which applies to life absolutely in toto, is that life often is gray. It's not about absolutes. It's not about black and white. It's not about right and wrong. Many a times, it's essentially about being in a situation which is absolutely gray, and you cannot really figure out what is the right out of it and what is the wrong out of it. And in such situations, you need to be okay with it. You need to assimilate it and try to go beyond that, right? On my mind as well. Because the fourth learning that eventually life gave me as we speak of the tribulations and the suits that you see and all the tensions that are created in the sitcoms that you all love is the chaos, right? It's chaotic. Everything that you see around a lawyer, everything fancy that you might see where the punches are being blown is all chaotic. But what really is taught from these lessons and what I've learned from actually being in the chaotic situations is actually the calm in chaos that you can eventually manage, which is going to really help you transgress through everything and anything that is thrown at you in life. So with that, I would like to just sum up my journey, which started as a young toddler, who went on to become a gold medalist lawyer, took few punches from life in general, and went on to then represent various giants of our country before various portals. What really taught me and what really was understood by me from life is eventually it's not at all about throwing punches as you see in all the fancy sitcoms or all the fancy courtroom dramas that you might see, but it's always and always about how many punches can you take and still get up. It's not, I hope. And lastly, I would like to end with the last learning that is very material, I think, again, to learn. Every one of you, including me, every one of you must have presumed when you see and have an image of a lawyer that a lawyer should know what's to be said. A lawyer should know how to carry himself or herself. A lawyer is all about words and going on and on about it. But what really, really matters in the courtrooms, and I have learned later as well that it matters in life too, is you should know what not to say and you should know when to stop. In our courtrooms, I have seen one wrong question in cross-examination, one wrong sentence to a judge can really change your acquittal of a person to a conviction of a person. It's about life and death for people. If you do not know where to stop and you do not know what not to say. So with that, I think I'll put one last question in your mind maybe and end my talk is, do you know how many punches can you take and still get up? Thank you.